Working now. I got the recording started. Hey everyone, welcome. This is the an office hours on Eventlet removal in OpenStack. We've been doing this for a few cycles at different PTGs, and we've made a lot of progress. I think in across a lot of projects. Hervé is going to be leading this session, and we have a bunch of folks that are contributing to the Eventlet pop-up team. So Hervé, all yours now.
Thank you. So welcome to the Eventlet removal gazpacho retrospective. So let's first take a retrospective about what happened on the Eventlet side. So this series was a bit quiet for Eventlet itself. We moved from a couple of Python version support. So we made some evolution. We recently moved from Python 3.14 alpha to a stable version, which introduced a couple of problems, but we solved them on the Eventlet code base. In parallel of that, we recently removed the Python 3.9 support, meaning that we are now maintaining the compatibility between Python 3.10 and Python 3.14. And we are currently monitoring to the Python version 3.15, but we didn't yet introduce it into the gates and runtime because it is still in alpha version and it's a bit too bit early, and it will cost us back and forth between code base change, and so we are waiting a bit before integrating Python 3.15. So concerning the async IO part, we made some improvement. So we strengthened the async IO integration for migration support for people who want to use async IO. We fixed some Python 3.14 compatibility issue with async IO. And we unseated the module and patching logic because it was a bit made manually, and so we integrated, we refactored the code to ensure that each new version of the API of async.io doesn't break the patching logic. So this is what we made mainly during gazpacho on the Eventlet side. So now I will leave the mic to Daniel, who will speak about Oslo services.
Yes, hi everyone. So about Oslo services, we have introduced the spawn. So the main goal of this work was for Manila actually. So the idea was to reduce the instability caused by the fork in multi-thread. And so I have introduced the multiprocessing. So I have two patches of some, it is already merged, and I have another one. Some is not merged yet. It's still in discussion. Takashi asked me to do a POC because I have no POC yet. So I work on the POC. To give some example of the usage for the last patch is not merged yet, and yeah, I think that's pretty all for me. Not so much to say.
Sorry, folks, joined a bit late, and I have a question regarding the pickable thingies. So I do see the warning appearing in Nova. So if we have something that is not pickable, is there a set of known patterns to like solve non-pickable issues? I don't know what exactly not pickable in Nova. I will check. But if you have already examples how to solve that, then be helpful.
No, not yet.
Okay, then I will take a look and try myself. at least the warning is there, so that works.
Yeah.
I think the problem was initially found in Neutron, then the error was indicating something like the config object is not pickable. But I haven't really looked into that yet. But it's quite likely that the pickable check is not really working in any project at this moment, seeing that it might be quite common thing happening in Oslo config stuff. So
yeah,
we have to check the stages of the warning in every project to see if that's a common thing, and we might have to fix something within Oslo, especially in Oslo config field. The pickable problem was initially found. But yeah, that's all I think we currently know, and we still have to dig into that to find out the actual solution or any common pattern to fix the same problem in all services, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, I can try to raise the issue if it's a common one, like if it's Oslo config in the case, then I will.
Yeah, if you find it coming from some generic thing from Oslo config, then there might be something.
File a bug.
Yeah, file a bug in Oslo config, and then someone will be looking into it.
Okay, that works for me.
Yes.
If there is no other question about Oslo services, I propose to continue over the various services. So I personally made some status update about various services in the designate, Glance Manager, etc., etc. So either I can put some word about what I found, or if people who are owning this deliverable, if you want to take the lead of the part of your deliverable, feel free to stop me. I will start with Cinder. I don't know if someone want to take the mic about Cinder.
Hi. Yeah, sorry, I hadn't prepared much of an update, but we've got a lot of code under review right now targeting the H cycle. Things seem to be up and running pretty well as far as not having any blocking issues in the way. We definitely have a few more areas to investigate and some more code to write, but Cinder volume and scheduler are up and running pretty well right now. Another engineer is working on the backup service, and it's at least somewhat working. I don't know. I'm not sure what else to report on.
Yeah, I seen you made some progress about Oslo services in Cinder, so too. So I think you are now aligned with recent version of Oslo services.
Yeah.
Cool, thanks. So move on to Designate. So Designate, as far as I know, the migration is now finished. So this is good news. There is a lot of work done on Designate, and this is a good milestone. So thank you to all the people who work on that. Move on to Glance. So I observed that there is a remove that you removed the usage of Eventlet from utils, and that you updated the unit test to use native threading. So I don't know if there is Cyril or someone else from. I don't think so. In all the case, as far as I know, Glance is in good shape and is moving forward. So I think Glance is under control.
Yeah, the one piece I'll note for Glance is that there's a work in progress patch to remove Eventlet usage from the Glance client code. and I think we haven't maybe figured out exactly when that can get merged yet. I think the premise was that that can happen after all this is consuming that client.
Yeah. Each kind of library or client need to wait for the main services migration before we move on. That we already have discussion with Cyril about that. But yeah.
Do we know if only the Glance client is using Eventlet, or we have other clients actually using Eventlet?
That's a good question. It seems to me that there is other clients outside of the Glance world. I don't have the list right now, but I can give you a status after the call.
I think most aren't. The Cinder one doesn't.
Yeah, I agree. But for the Glance client specifically, was the approach to switch to OpenStack SDK everywhere, right? And not fix Glance client?
But yeah, that will require us to replace all of the existing implementation in the other services to interact with Glance to so that they use the Glance OpenStack SDK instead of Glance client. So that's yet another the long-term work. I haven't yet looked into this yet, but I found the current usage of the Eventlet thing in Glance client quite strange, because it seems that it attempts to check the patch status. I mean, it tries to explicitly import implementations from Eventlet if the Eventlet patch is applied. But I guess that we can even drop that, because as far as I know, the Eventlet patch should replace the classes, so we don't really have to import the explicit Eventlet classes, Eventlet things, as long as Eventlet is properly applied. So we can probably even try that and try removing that. But yeah, as earlier mentioned, it might be safe to just wait until the other services so that the other services, depending on Glance client, removes the current usage of Eventlet.
It's a good point, though. It might be something interesting to test, because when you look at how that code is used there, it doesn't really appear to be doing much or anything.
Yeah, I agree that is probably not needed, even if you run under Eventlet, because the patching happens regardless if you are importing from the Eventlet library or not.
Yeah, we can probably set up the tips job using the latest, the master Glance client, which runs some jobs with no one seen to see if that breaks anything. Yeah, I think that kind of experiment can be tried first to see if we can just easily remove it.
Okay, thanks. Gutam, maybe I will give you the mic about Manila.
Yeah, made some progress during the Gaspacho cycle. So we got just like the other services, an environment option that allows you to switch into the native threading mode. So the blast surface for Manila was much lesser because it's a simpler service in that aspect. So the biggest moving bits were in the share manager service, and so we used all of the new code that went into Oslo service and took advantage of that. I think the place where we were concentrating on next is perf scale testing. We wanted to see what amount of regression, if any, was there in the API service. So if we were to, or I meant like end-to-end workflows, say you're creating stuff, you're creating share snapshots, etc., with a specific backend, trying to see if we can benchmark if native threads were performing better or worse than Eventlet. And for that, I think Carlos has been doing a bunch of work in the Rally project to try and get us a job template to do comparisons. So it'll look a lot like the Grenade job. So it kind of runs against two versions of OpenStack, pulls the reports, and then does a comparison. So he has a POC with Manila already, and he has some data that he's working off of. And yeah, let me pause there. Carlos is in the room, I think. Do you want to mention anything, Carlos?
I want to
Yeah.
chime in for the perf testing. So
Yeah.
I guess you have basically the same idea I had with running Rally bit twice in the same job and comparing the result. I'm happy to like help in or like share thinking about your generic job template. I only have that in Nova specifically, but if it can be generalized, that is sounds useful. So I will take a look and we can join forces there.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So I under the Manila updates, I linked the Rally job that I've been working on. So that job is, as Gautam stated, is pretty much like Grenade. You know, like I reused a lot of things from Grenade because it does not make sense to re-implement things. So we'll get from a stable branch, run the Rally tests, and then do the upgrade, run Rally test again. We'll generate some reports for the first run, for the second run, and also a trends report, something that is available. I think Andre was pointing me to that, mentioning it might be useful. And I think I made things generic enough so that other projects can use as well. So if you look at the Manila template, it should be adaptable for any other projects that do have Rally tests as well. So yeah, happy to join forces there. In case you have any feedback, I'm happy to take it. Yeah, changes linked there. And we also have some runs that there is a change in Manila that's has a depends on this Rally OpenStack job, and it has the produced output of this job. So yeah, if happy to answer any questions about that, and yeah, work together.
Just poking around, have you seen any significant changes in memory usage or speed between the two versions?
No, the runs, they seem very similar, like both of them, which is a very good indication. In our case, we expected, like that it wouldn't have a big change in performance. And for the Rally test runs that we did, that was pretty much confirmed. So yeah, maybe Nova has other tests, and this is also something that we are looking into. Our tests, they are currently basic, but we also wanted to look at it in a perspective of what can we test better, because our Rally tests, they were introduced years ago and we never looked at updating them. Manila is completely different from when we started. So that's one of the next steps we are taking, looking at things that can be enhanced and more tests that we should implement. But yeah, so far it doesn't seem to have a very big difference from running with threading and Eventlet.
Thank you. I did some basic measurements in Nova, and the learning there is that like Nova has a couple of thread pools, which the size of the thread pool obviously changes the memory usage of the service compared to Eventlet, because the Eventlet green threads are a lot cheaper than native threads. So we are trying to do this performance testing to figure out how to set our defaults to give around the same performance with around the same memory usage if possible. And of course, give a guideline to the operators to tune that forward if they need to scale. So I do see changes, but Nova is different.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I think part of what we're trying to do with this Rally thing is probably just put the the scaffolding in place that we can do some deeper testing elsewhere too, because we are limited by what we can do with DevStack single node, multi-node, but really two-node tests in upstream. So if we bring this locally, maybe in downstream context, you're changing configuration, you're deploying with real-ish backends, and trying to get some more data with that. So keeping this scaffolding is helpful, so that we can extend that testing downstream, and yes, make that sort of recommendation with documentation and so on. Thanks. And in Etch, what Manila we want to do is we have some VIP functional testing jobs that we want to turn on. We didn't do that in the gazpacho cycle. We didn't merge them. We just saw them working in the gate. So we're going to turn them on in the Etch cycle. And I was thinking, I mean, we could do an event-led default, something that we've not discussed with the Manila team yet. If we're seeing that there are not significant bugs or performance regressions, we would actually switch to testing with the non-eventlet mode, which is the native threading mode, and keep the eventlet support through this cycle as we promised, and tear it down in the next cycle per the regular timeline that we set. Yeah, it's pretty much it, I think, for Manila. Carlos, did you have anything else to call out?
Nope. Yep. I think it's very good summary. Thanks, Gautam.
All right. Back to you, Hervé.
Thanks. So if there is no other question about Manila, we'll move to Neutron. So I think we can consider Neutron as fully migrated. But we made a couple of updates at the beginning of Gazpacho. So the main achievement made during Gazpacho on the Neutron side was that we moved the Oslo services backend to the trading mode, and we banned import of Eventlet, so there is no more import allowed. And that's already prepared also with the option. So I think we can consider them as done. I propose to move to Nova. Gibi, I will give you maybe I don't know.
Thanks. I can quickly summarize where we are at the end of Gazpacho. We support native threading for almost all of the Nova services except the console proxies like NovaNC and Spice and Serial console proxy, and we have a bit of gap in the CLIs like Nova Manage and Nova Status. The console proxy and CLI is being worked on as we speak in Hibiscus, and that's very much targeted to be closing the gap on the services side. But we have a list of gaps on testing and performance testing and cleanup work. So we also need to make our functional test running with native threading, which seems to be a big thing. Unfortunately, there are many complications there. Our unit tests are almost fully running with native threading. There are a couple of excluded test cases which we are working down as we speak, and very similar goals about performance testing that Manila folks already shown. We have our own plans with our Raleigh job and comparing results between Eventlet and native threading usage. That's it. Yeah, and one more thing. So Nova is supporting both Eventlet and threading in parallel. You can switch between the two with an environment variable per service. But we are slowly switching our defaults. So with Gazpacho, if you deploy Gazpacho by default, then your Nova API, Metadata API, and scheduler will run in native threading mode by default. So all the gates out there using it already by default in native threading. In Hibiscus, we already merged the patch that switched the default of Nova Compute and Nova Conductor as well. So if you deploy today from master, then you get your Nova Compute and Nova Conductor by default running in native threading mode. So far, I haven't seen any gate issues by that, but if you see something strange, then let us know. Nova Compute is a complicated beast, so running it in native threading could cause interesting things. That's it.
Thank you. Is there a question for Nova?
I think it's going to be generic to all the services that look a lot like Nova, because we, they were forked at some point from Nova, kind of thing. But the WSGI recommendations, I think it came up with the operators thing yesterday as well. I was trying to find out if there is still somebody relying on our native WSGI servers, and what Nova is doing, for instance, or what other services are doing. Is there a deprecation warning, or have you just dropped support already?
We dropped support for the inbuilt WSGI.
Okay.
So you have to provide your own.
I think we did that in Epoxy as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in terms of the gate testing, we're only testing with WSGI. In terms of our product testing, we're exclusively testing with Apache.
Mm-hmm.
So we at least have a spread from that perspective. But we haven't really done Grudacorn or any of the other WSGI server that we could be out there. But yeah, that's been at least a cycle, if not 2 cycles at this point, that you've had to use the Azure Tree one. One thing that does work is we don't ship the PBR WSGI script wrapper anymore, but what you can do is you can go site packages, Nova WSGI, whatever we call it, compute.py, because we have 2 for Nova reasons. And if you put that as the WSGI script to use in Apache, then that just works as well. So you don't need to package a different one. Yeah.
Awesome.
We got one feedback around this earlier, that there was an operator out there who had to use the Eventlet-based API server, VSGI server, because Nova has a couple of synchronous API calls that takes a long time, and if they switching to mod VSGI in Apache or whatnot and native threading, then that long API holds up a whole process in that Apache VSGI, while in Eventlet mode it just hold up one single Eventlet. So what we did there is in Gazpacho, we made that API asynchronous. That was the volume attach or detach. One of those was changed now. We have one more. The interface detach is also synchronous, but it doesn't take that frequently, that long time. So we know that there are these kind of things that probably prevent or can prevent people to switching to external VSGI if we don't support anything async IO like in our APIs. But that's if we will, that will come later, because we just don't have the capacity to move there immediately.
I have a question on that. So did I understand correctly that you might actually end up with using async IO and threading in parallel for this specific tasks?
No plans at the moment. We don't know.
All right.
Yeah, so Nova's moved directly to that. Watcher is weird because it had Eventlet, native threading, and async IO in the same code base at the same time, and that apparently worked, but there was no testing of it in all cases. So I don't know if any project has actually got to the point of they have removed Eventlet and are actually adding async IO yet. I'd be kind of interested to hear if they have, but I don't think anyone has actually had the time to follow up and actually look at using async IO or something else to replace it.
So if anybody is actually working on that, I would be very happy if you ping me. I'm very curious about that one as well.
Assuming that you might be interested in Swift mainly, it might not be quite relevant to Swift. There are several work already done in underlying library like the SQL Alchemy, as well as also DB to support async IO thing. But yeah, as Sean mentioned, I think nothing is still using it. There are a few services accidentally using async IO, like Zacker is actually using it for some WebSocket thing, but yeah, I think nothing has yet replaced the existing, the threading or even Eventlet thing by async IO at this moment. So there might be multiple, new fun stuffs if you try to implement that.
Yeah. So
And
what?
actually, there are several dependencies. Like I think the Pivot 2 introduced the async IO thing. I mean, there are several libraries already introducing async IO stuff, and we have seen several problems by the library deciding to support only async IO. So
Yeah, so Pivot 2, that impacts OSVIF, which impacts
yeah,
Nova, and they have both the async API and a blocking API at the moment, but we have a bug that's preventing us from going to the new version that has
Yeah.
both. In Watcher, it was because the library for talking to MAS, the Metal as a Service, is async IO only. So there was some hacky code to try and convert eventlets into async IO coroutines and do the dispatch across those two runtimes. In the chat, it says Blazor has some async IO patches, which is also interesting. But yeah, the library dependency issue is a real thing that we have to be careful of.
Yeah, and I think the general kind of direction, I mean, the common direction among the project is just going to the threading and trying to avoid anything forcing async IO. I think that's the current tendency among the all projects. So yeah, async IO has been discussed several times, so it's not a real no-go thing, but the reality is that there are still many things to, use it actually within OpenStack. So that's a current status I'm aware of.
I think the real reason for this is having two runtimes on the code base at once is hard, and we don't want to have three. So I think most projects are basically going, let's get off of Eventlet entirely, and then we can see if we need async IO or something else afterwards. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So I think we can move now to Swift. Christian, maybe I will give you the lead of this part.
Yeah, thanks, Irv. Yeah, so we have a long series of patches proposed upstream for review. We had an earlier session today in the Swift PDG. We have like a pretty good idea about how to, well, make it easier for review and especially make it easier to prevent merge conflicts going forward. So we have a special branch that where we want to actually merge this first. And like we need to rebase this pretty soon. I'm currently working on one of these prerequisite patches, and I hope to actually get this done before the session tomorrow to discuss this as well. So that said, I sent out a status mail a couple of weeks ago on the mailing list. There's not that much change there yet. The numbers on paper look pretty good. We have like 100% functional test passing, 99% unit test passing, and so on and so forth. But like the remaining 1% unit tests are actually where the hard bits are actually well hidden. It's mostly around the difference between a very predictive behavior using Eventlet and, well, unpredictive behavior using threading. So with Eventlet, actually, when you switch from one coroutine to one coroutine, you can make this very descriptive and like audit. And in some cases, especially when it comes to erasure coding, where you query many servers in parallel, actually need to reconstruct fragments from these servers into a single, well, object back and forth. We need to have like a very predictive we might need to have a very predictive behavior. And we're currently still discussing about like what is actually, or what are the tests actually, or where are assumptions in tests too strict, whereas other places we might just to loosen these test restrictions a little bit. Yeah, we have some good plans, I think, to going forward within the next couple of weeks and months. So I'm looking forward to that, and to, well, a couple of people actually start reviewing this, or more people reviewing this. And yeah, I think that's a summary from my side. Any questions on this? Oh, and I should probably mention actually, we're also using threading, and we're using also like a flag actually to switch between Eventlet and threading, at least for probably 1 or 2 releases. So very similar to what Nova does.
Great, thank you. Any question for Swiss? So I think we can move to Watcher. I think it's you, Douglas, who left this comment.
Yeah, I can comment about that. I added some notes to the Etherpad. So basically on Gazpacho, we move our last component to support threading mode. That was applier. So in Flamingo, we had the API decision engine already running a job in threading mode. But now we had all those 3 running thread mode, but in Gazpacho, we still set the Eventlet as the default mode. Now early in the Bisco's release, we already merged a patch to move all the components to run on threading mode by default. So for now, the next thing that we plan to do is decide together with the team. We're going to discuss tomorrow in our PTG about the removal of the Eventlet code. So we have already do not merge change testing the deletion of the code and have the CI passing already. But we're still up to decide if we are going to wait until the 2027 for the code removal, or if we are going to remove already at the end of this release. We want at least to have a couple of months CI running against threading mode by default. But I think that for Archer, almost that's it.
Thank you. Any question for Watcher? Okay, move on to Cyborg. I think it's you, Shen, that leaves the comment.
Yeah, so Cyborg was interesting because it was monkey patch, but it didn't actually ever call Eventlet other than that. So the removal was basically remove the monkey patch and fix 1 DB deadlock because we were missing a retry decorator that should have been there in the first place. So it's Eventlet only. There may be some performance issues as a result, but if we have reports of that, then we will just address them as normal bugs and improve the performance. I haven't started to put in thread pools again because Cyborg was not using Eventlet.spawn or anything like that previously. So again, we'll have to do more testing, etc. But it's been running Eventlet free. Main reason I went straight to just pulling out Eventlet is it wasn't deploying. The CI was broken, and as part of fixing it, it was basically easier just to remove Eventlet because of the simple monkey patch. If we get reports from operators or anyone that this is a regression that's an issue, we may have to reintroduce it, but I don't foresee that being a problem given how minimally it was used. So that's all I have really on that. The native Eventlet web server was also just removed for the same reason. You could have run it with UWSGI for quite a long time. So I didn't know of any reason to keep it, so it has been removed.
Perfect. Thank you. Any question for Shen? So we are closed from the call to action for Hibiscus. So I think the main things to do is to continue to keep the migration path and to default to threading as soon as possible for projects that are not yet moved to the threading backend. Gibby, I don't know if you want to summarize it. I think you already...
Yep, I said the same. So we have a plan to switch the defaults gradually. So the generic rule we follow is have a release that supports both Eventlet and threading for a given service, but default to Eventlet. And then in the next release, we switch the default to threading. And this is what we did in the last couple of cycles, and this is what we are planning to do in Age. So Age, Nova Compute, and Nova Conductor switches to threading by default, while we are working on getting threading support for the NoVNC console. And therefore, in Age, NoVNC console still defaults to Eventlet, but can be used with threading. And then in I, we will switch the default to threading in the console proxies as well.
Thank you. So next, there is a question about the impact on root swap and what is the timeline for throw preset removing eventlet import. I think the main response, the main answer is that we are waiting for services to be migrated first, and then we will drop support of Eventlet into this deliverable.
The main concern with the root wrap issue was there was originally intent to not support root wrap going forward as part of the Eventlet free other libraries. So I mentioned in the TC discussion that we have some indirect usages, such as OSBrick uses root wrap. They started moving to Eventlet, but they are to PrivSet, but they never completed it. And I think there's a few other places that impacts. So we use obviously OSBrick in Nova, but it's also used in Cinder. So even though Nova might be Eventlet free itself, one of its libraries might end up still using root wrap, and if root wrap doesn't work in threaded mode, then that would be an issue, right? So I don't know what the current plan for root wrap support is, and if it is going to block any service from dropping Eventlet support, but that was just one of the issues with it.
There is a question about pickup problem.
That might be related to PrivSep. If you want to call a function via PrivSep, the function itself and all the arguments you pass has to be pickable because it's sent over a Unix socket using that as transport.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit confused about this. So is this an efficiency thing? But yeah, I initially thought this is a kind of efficiency thing, but later there were some mentions. I mean, there were some notes. I'm saying that it will be the default, the necessary default in the future Python version. So I would like to just understand the expected timeline about fixing this, because if this likely breaks support for a new Python version like Python 3.15, then we definitely have to fix that before that new version is being pulled into the PTI. So I'm just wondering what this can potentially block, and how urgent it will be. Like the currently, we are not seeing the immediate problem after we introduced the just warning but ignore change into the Oslo service. But yeah.
So the default context changing is not to the spawn, right? So it's going to be the fork server, and I think that's something should not break us.
Okay.
Yeah, because spawn is still there in multiprocessing, but the default they are changing since 3.14 is fork server, and fork will be deprecated. But when they remove it, I don't know. But I think that was a good question from you, because I saw there are some changes on config side, make it pick label, and that's what I wrote it up, and I now copied it under this pickle problem thing about my comment that if there is any service running in the spawn method or not, but I agree, like we should work on that pick label thing. Fork server as a default is good, even though it doesn't break, but running it in a spawn way is much better for us.
Okay. Yeah, my initial concern is that we might not be just, that we might just be, overlooking something happening within Python 3.14 if some default behavior is changing there. But yeah, probably not, as we are, forcing the for context, I think, and if it's not pickable, but yeah.
Yeah, we are forcing fork if it's not pick label, but
okay.
But still, like once we have that the Ubuntu 26.04 image available, and we have some dev stack job running on Python 3.14, I think that we should be able to see if there's any issue when the multiprocessing changing its context default fork server, and how we are, like, as you know, we are falling back to the fork. It should be temporarily because fork is being deprecated. I don't know when they will remove it, but if they remove it, then we will be broken.
Okay.
Because, fork, either we have to fall back to the fork server, or how pick label thing works there or not. I mean, we need to test those.
Yeah.
We're just using pickle as a serialization format as well, so we could always convert the objects that we're passing to a different format. Maybe less efficient, but we don't pass a lot of data across the call to privsep.
Yeah, but that means that you have to make every object like classes or instances. I mean, the current problem is happening in the config in the class from also config, and making every single in the class pickable or serializable might be tricky, But yeah.
Fair. Just one thing on while we're talking about Oslo. There was also that thread about the fact that there's a conflict when you're using the heartbeat thread, where we put in a half-second sleep in a while true loop somewhere in Tazo, because basically in threaded mode, if you don't do the heartbeat in a separate p thread, then it can end up blocking if there's another action waiting, and then the heartbeat times out. So there was a discussion about, do we just revert that patch, or is it even needed? Originally, the patch was only meant to be there for heartbeat and pthread equals true. At least on the Nova side, we have advised for years that you never set that to true, even in the API server. So does anyone have context on how we're moving that? Because that was a performance regression issue when you weren't running in Eventlet mode, because all of if the heartbeat ends up sleeping, it was actually sleeping that entire RPC thread.
Yeah, I have to load that context again, but I think the agreement in the mailing thread was just revert that, assuming that it will be only required in the eventlet-based service-based heartbeat in pthread too. So I think that was part of some work being done earlier to fix it, but we eventually decided to get rid of that feature. I mean, it's being removed now, so I think we should just revert the change. We have to consider how we handle the stable branches better. But for master, we definitely can revert that. And we should also probably check the other workarounds we implemented for heartbeat pthread in the older releases. Because these are not likely needed in the all threading wall. Or no one using heartbeat in pthread after duplication and removal.
Yeah, so the other thing we're happy to pthread is we originally deprecated and said we're going to remove it and default to true. Then we said, no, true is breaking everything. We're going to default back to false. So we undeprecated it for a while and then redeprecated it. But I don't know how well that's been communicated out to operators and installer maintainers and that kind of stuff, that it's being removed, but it's being removed and it's going to be false, basically. Yeah. I had one other thing, but I can't remember. Oh, I do. So we have a very similar heartbeat in OSVF. Technically, it's in OSACC, or one of the other libraries that it calls, to talk to OVS. And the way we stopped that from making Nova Compute just hard lock was we turned off the heartbeat entirely and said we're using TCP keep alive. So one of the things that we could look at here as well is, can we actually turn off the heartbeat entirely for Rabbit and rely on just TCP keep alive? Because that fully offloads all of that to the kernel. We don't need to burn a thread on it, just sending the ping back and forth. I just don't know if that's a configuration option that's reasonable on the Rabbit side and if it supports that. Okay, I'll stop talking now.
I think we can move to the next question. So that's a question from you, Kiman, about keeping Eventlet as a default for the SQL.
Yeah, as Gibi explained, I think then I started to search in the goal whether we have or not. Because I remember in our back we had the we had those timeline like you can support the new RBAC, then make it default, then remove and all those stuff. So I was thinking when we say in the step 6, like I'm reading the link I pasted on line number 115 in Etherpad, the goal criteria, completion criteria. So when we are saying in step 6, 27.1, deprecate the event support, I think we should say that every project, they should keep Eventlet as a default for one cycle, and then next cycle they can change default to threading mode before they remove the Eventlet, right?
There are two things. One is there are projects out there that just move to native threading without keeping Eventlet support already. So you cannot have 2027.1 having Eventlet support in Neutron, for example, because they already moved. The other thing is that Nova also moved gradually service by service. So there are some services which defaults to Eventlet today and some that defaults to threading already today. Each service itself kept one cycle when it was supporting both and defaulting to Eventlet before we switched to threading. At least for Nova, we can say that in 2027.1, we still support Eventlet for each services, but not by default. So you have to pre-configure your deployment before slurping to 2027.1 to keep Eventlet support on 2027.1 after the upgrade. And then you can move gradually your services by reconfiguration to native threading before you move forward to newer releases. So I think it's we cannot it's a bit late on changing the rules here, I guess.
Yeah, and I also want to flip that around a little bit, saying, I mean, SR back is probably not in the same kind of space, right? There is no real requirement here to do anything consistently across all of the projects. Like there is no Oslo config option that they set that is applicable to all of the projects, for instance. So that's kind of given each project some independence to choose how to break things up and switch to native threading already if they don't really have hard dependencies on Eventlet and so on. So they had less motivation to sequence this and do this consistently across. And I think it kind of also doesn't lend itself well to this goal. It's good to have the projects make individual decisions like that.
But even before the Eventlet removal goal, placement never used Eventlet, right? Keystone moved several years before the goal happened. So this removal had happened in a lot of projects like Salamanca, etc., years ago because it just was a natural thing for them to do, not because they were forced to do it. So there were, it hasn't been true that every project has used Eventlet for 5-6 years. At least since we created placement has been using Eventlet free in its WSGI server. So saying there's one release where all of OpenStack uses Eventlet was never really semantically true because of that as well.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's more complicated. I was just thinking if some release, even 27.1, we can make a statement that OpenStack do support eventlet, but threading is the default.
My understanding with the current proposal was we were trying to get to a point where 2026.1, everything could potentially run in threaded mode, but everything still supported eventlet. That where they didn't just flat out drop it. And in 2027.1, the intent is that everything should support threaded mode. Ideally, it's the default, and they may still have the ability to run on it, but it will be going away in 2027.2. Does that line up with other people?
Yeah, I think the going away part is the whole transitive dependence,
Yeah.
right? So everything that is in the common space, that's why it's waiting. And so if you're installing something, something else might be monkey patching something in your in the space because of the way things are imported and such. But the removal within project teams itself, yeah, we didn't have to sequence that way.
So related to that, Dan Smith had a proposal or like an idea last cycle that maybe in DevStack we can tweak it so that there's actually two virtual environments, one where Eventlet is just never installed and one that's the other shared one. And we never actually started doing that, but that is something we could maybe explore as well if there was an interest in it or we saw a benefit in it.
I have a sort of parallel idea which has a place in Nova code that just not enabled because I cannot yet, but we can poison the import of Eventlet. So if the poison is enabled then early enough, then whoever tries to import Eventlet just breaks, and then we will see if something is still trying to import Eventlet. That's not a way to do this.
Do we currently do that only in the tests, or are we doing that at runtime when you set the environment
We
level?
don't do anything at the moment because we still
Okay.
import Eventlet in the Nova VNC proxy and etc. So at some point we will be able to do this in Nova even in runtime if we want to. That's a question if you want to have that poison in runtime, because it's a shady business. If somebody integrates to Nova on the code level somehow, then we start breaking them. It might not be what we want. But in the test environment, definitely I want to enable that to see if everything is eventlet free, if we declare it eventlet free.
So I can tell you that it will break today because it's either Azure log or Azure concurrency imports the Azure util for checking if eventlet exists, which unconditionally doesn't import. Right, so we need to clean that up as well so that it only will do the import lazily if you call the function to check if eventlet's there.
I think we have multiple places in Oslo where we can make it conditionally checking, not unconditionally importing. And also Nova has a couple of places where we now unconditionally import, and we should just switch it to conditionally import. I think the libvirt driver has unconditional imports. I have to double check. We can fix those. Like that's
there are still multiple also libraries still requiring eventlet. I mean, from the import wise as well as the dependency wise. I mean, there are some the modules actually importing it, and there are a number of. I mean, also the good example is also service. So it's also service is still dependent on eventlet, because the eventlet is a default mechanism, and we don't really want to ask every single project to update the requirements so that they can still continue using eventlet for a while. But yeah, we should eventually drop that dependency or move that dependency to optional so that some projects can opt in to using the eventlet. And then, yeah, we should eventually remove it from the every places we have.
The specific case that I'm thinking of is in Azure log, we call into Azure utils to check if eventlet is loaded in the environment so that we can do the pipe mutex fix. So even if you don't use eventlet, it is at least going to try to do that import. It correctly handles it, but if it's not installed. But if you tried to do the poison that I gave you was suggesting, Nova would just explode at that point because you tried to import eventlet. So I guess the question was, are we still on track, more or less, to have the ability to run everything in threaded mode, ideally in 2027.1, and do the actual Oslo cleanup and removal in 2027.2? Because I haven't seen anything that says no.
Yeah, I think Nova is on track.
I guess I have a question with that though. So I think all of our testing is based off of Python 3.12 because we're mostly running Ubuntu 24.04 right now in most CI jobs. Has anyone done Python 3.14 testing with this with Tempest?
Not 3.14, but Nova is using 3.13 because we're running the
I see.
Eventlet job on Debian.
Okay.
So at least we have that covered.
We should probably ask that question to Canonical folks, assuming they're currently extensively testing that for 2604. But yeah, hopefully we can get some feedback from their activities.
Yes.
I've seen several patches fixing Python 3.14 stuff from them. So
Nova's unit test passed in 3.14 at least, and I think that's true for. Have we tested actually in the threaded mode? Because we have a separate tagger for that. I know we moved the threaded mode to 3.13.
Yeah, 3.13 threaded works. 3.14 I haven't tried. I can try today. It's not hard, but I don't know if it passes or not.
Yeah, I think I mean I was just calling this out in the TC room as well that we need somebody to do like this coordinated effort to do the 3.14 testing with the Ubuntu release that's coming out next kind of thing. So if anybody's done some testing, it's probably around this Eventlet stuff that things might break, right? Across.
I think Paula, I know that 3.4 Ubuntu 26.0 image is not available yet. I think the node set, but we can do it in DevStack, and that will automatically start testing in threading mode if that is by default, for example, for Noah. And if other services also making it threading as a default, definitely we can catch the things and test there.
Yeah, so the one gotcha that we need to double check is Canonical. We're obviously testing for 2604. And the one thing they've reported so far is that using sudo ORS, so the Rust implementation of sudo, we couldn't launch PritSep properly. So the initial workaround was just switch it back to the GNU implementation, and that's what they did initially. I don't know if that has been fixed, and that is kind of independent of the Eventlet stuff, but that is something we might need to carry in DevStack just to set the alternative back to the GNU version. But that's the first roadblock we'll hit unless they've already patched that.
Nice. Yeah, that's the sort of thing I guess we should surface. If you have a bug link, we can look.
Yeah, this is not directly related to the Eventlet reward topic, but do we expect that Ubuntu 2604 required for next cycle, or will it be optional stuff?
It will be something that we would be requiring for the next cycle because it's, I mean, it's the sort of thing where our release cycles are not lining up with an LTS release that we could use for a stable gate kind of thing.
So next cycle, Takashi, you said is 27.1, right? Not the 6.2.
So I was talking about the Ubuntu version. So we are testing with 24.04, but I was wondering if 26.04 will be included as the mandatory testing runtime.
So it's currently
will be optional
as an optional events testing platform, and the intent would be to support in 2027.1. But obviously, if we don't have DevStack working and it's not functional in the gate, then that would be deferred.
Yeah, for this cycle, we just, I mean, I think that's the every time it happens, the Ubuntu release is just 1 or 2 weeks after our development cycle starts, and we don't include that in that particular thing. Maybe, but it would have been good if we could start doing it here.
Yeah, it's good that we have a kind of the early testing cycle before requiring it. So,
but as long as image is available, I think even though it's an optional somewhere we'll have the integration job
Yeah.
on the stack or Tempest side, and obviously projects can start doing their testing too.
The official release is happening on the 29th, I believe, so in 8 days' time. And I am planning to just pull it down, set force equals true on DevSec and see what breaks. I don't know how much time I'll have beyond that to go fix things, but I'm at least planning to do that in the next week or two.
That's the key has been for previous migration of these distro thing. If nothing breaks, like it's very easy thing to do within 1-2 days. But if things are stuck, then it takes a lot of time. And
I'm hoping, I'm hoping a lot of the fixes we did last cycle for getting Debian working properly, Debian 13, will pay dividends here. Because a lot of the packages are going to come in through 2604 were already available through Debian 13 or Debian backports. But again, we won't know until we actually try.
Yep. All right, we're actually 10 minutes over, but this seems like the last PTG session for today. Looks like every other room kind of ended early. Do we want to keep going, or is there anything left at all?
I actually need to drop and run the Cyborg one, so.
Oh, okay. Bye. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else got anything else for this session? All right. If not, it's a wrap. Thank you for working on this, and I'll post a recording to the TC's YouTube channel and share a link. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.